Hump Night, Wednesday, February 4th, 2009. It's Humpty Dumpty time. Yep, Hump Night, Wednesday. It is 7 p.m. on the Pacific coast of the lower 48 states. My name is Ace London, and this is Lundon Calling, the talk show you've been waiting for. The internet podcast talk show that could get you high. Oh my gosh. You could become a podhead. Oh, welcome all you wild and wonderful weirdos out there in Podland. Thanks for tuning in. The pre- and post-show music is provided by Sonic Echoes, and more information is provided on our website about Sonic Echoes, so check it out. I'm supposed to warn you in advance every show also that if you have virgin ears or little children listening in, they should not be there because folks tell me I have a potty mouth. What can I say? That's just the way I am. That's the real me, old potty mouth me. And tonight, oh my goodness, my little Lancelot, Lance Helms in Atlanta, Georgia, is not with me tonight. I already feel lonely. He's up in New York City attending the first annual PFLAG, Straight for Equality Gala that is being held up there. Now, PFLAG, folks, in case you don't know what it is, PFLAG is the acronym that stands for Parents, Friends of Lesbians and Gays. And they're having a Straight for Equality Gala in New York. So Lance is up there just probably having a good time, and I really envy him because it should be a wonderful occasion. They've got a lot of big shots there tonight. So that's where he is. Hi, Lance. And everything old is new again. Have you noticed that, folks? What goes around comes around? My goodness. I was noticing on the Super Bowl. Oh, wasn't that some Super Bowl? Let me tell you. Well, my little Arizona Birds didn't win, but boy, they played good. Yes, they did. And I noticed that on some of the commercials, they were in 3D. 3D. Everything old is new again. I can remember when 3D first came out, and I went to the first one down there in Hollywood at that big, I can't remember what the name of the theater was down there, and they had this movie playing in 3D. Well, I was in the first row in the balcony with a friend of mine. And they had this roller coaster in it. And I tell you, that 3D made me feel like I was really on a roller coaster. So much so that when the roller coaster went down, I came up out of my seat. And my friend had to grab a hold of my pants and pull me back down. Otherwise, I'd have fallen off the balcony. I swear to God, I couldn't believe it. But that's how real it was. And I went to the second 3D film that came out, and it was a Western where this guy threw a spear, and I'm sitting there, and I go, oh! I thought the spear had hit me right in my chest. It was that real. And I see also they have got 3D with this TV show called Chuck, which is a good little show, and that's going to be in 3D now also. So, folks, everything old is new again. Oh, my goodness. Goes around, comes around, doesn't it? You live long enough, and you'll see it certainly does. Hey, I got some news. I heard one of our listeners up in Michigan at CMU, Central Michigan University, Kate May. I call her the gal with the smile. Oh, God, she's got one of those smiles that when she smiles, the room lights up, and you just get shivers down your spine. She is a beautiful little gal up there. She's attending CMU, and I heard that she was up listening to our show number 10 at 1 a.m. Now, don't tell me how I know this, but we have our ways of knowing about you out there. And I heard she said she had a cold. So she said she was soothing her cold by listening to the show and laughing her A off. Hi, Kate, you little darling, you. Well, folks, I repeat it every show, and I'm going to repeat it again until it becomes so indelible in your mind that you'll never be able to forget it. Aristotle said it. It is the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it. You think about that. That means that whatever you hear on our show, whatever you hear on any show, or the news, or the whatever, you don't have to accept anything you're hearing. All you have to do is entertain the thought, and then make up your mind. That's what the Creator gave us a brain between our two ears for, probably, so we could think, okay? Another thought that has come to my mind since our last show, and the last two shows actually, was that wonderful film that was out called Prayers for Bobby, with, I can't even remember her name, having a senior moment. Anyway, she was so great in it. She played the mother of a young man who came out of his closet as a gay kid. Now, she played the role of a very, very evangelical Christian mother that went by the book. And she had a rough time accepting the fact that her son could possibly be a homo. And as a result of her stressing the kid out, the kid committed suicide. Yes, it does happen. It does happen for young people. Teen suicides amongst the gay and lesbian community is very, very high. And it probably is high because of the fact that a lot of parents and people that should be loving them aren't. You know, I remember a while back, I lived with this guilt for a long time, back in the late 50s, when I was involved in the ministry. There was a young man, matter of fact, he was from Mesa, Arizona, who became one of the so-called followers of our evangelical message. And I didn't learn everything until after he had put a gun in his mouth and pulled the trigger and blew his brains out. Then we found out that he was involved with us because he thought that there would be a way for him as a homosexual to be cured, because that was what was going around back then. And since he wasn't cured, and since his parents were not supporting him, he went back home, and we found out that he blew his brains out. And I lived with that, because had I been smart enough at that time, I should have done something. I never preached against homosexuality or anything like that because of my own knowledge of what was going on inside of me, but I also was very, very closeted. And so it was one of those things. So it can happen. And folks, if you happen to be a parent of a gay or lesbian or transgender child, or you've got cousins, nieces, and nephews or whatever, give them a little support with love. You know, so you don't understand it. Who does? My God, I don't even understand it. All I know is that it's not something that a person can choose. You just are or you're not. And I'm sure if you are a heterosexual, you didn't choose to be it either. You just are, okay? And it's the same for the homosexuals. So support them. Support them. And I'm glad that Lance is up there with the PFLAG group, because PFLAG has a lot of parents and aunts and uncles and grandpas and grandmas that are connected with PFLAG, and they are there to support their loved one who happens to be a gay or lesbian or bisexual, transsexual or whatever. These are good parents and good people. Okay? Have you thought about assisted suicide? That's in the news right now. You know, there's I think a big new book coming out, and this one, I think when it hits, it's gonna be creating a little bit of rustle in the leaves about assisted suicide. This son who helped his father and his mother commit suicide. Now, who knows where he's going to end up, because that is illegal, and he could end up in jail, you know, for helping them. But they wanted him to. They asked him to. And because he loved them so much, he saw no other way out. And I can relate to that, because those of you who may know a little bit about me know that my life mate, my soulmate, Patrick, lived with AIDS for a while and went through that horrible illness. And at one point in his illness, when he was so weak and everything, I came into the room and I saw a pillow lying on the floor. And he couldn't talk very much, but I said, are you okay? And he goes, no. And I said, what's wrong? He says, I tried to end it, and the pillow fell off. I passed out. And I said, oh, Patrick. He says, can't you do it? Put the pillow on my face. I said, oh, God, Pat. That's really asking a lot. And he said, I know. But there's no reason that I should be here anymore. I'm going to die anyway, and the suffering. I said, I know. But I said, if I do it, they'll know. He says, no, they won't. I said, yes, they'll know that I suffocated you, because your lips and such, they can tell. And I says, I know you don't want me to go to jail, do you? And he goes, no. And I said, well, oh gosh, Pat, all we can do is just live and love together whatever days we have left. And he looked at me, tears flowing down his face. And I said, well, kid, we just gotta hang in there. But assisted suicide, it's something that we're going to be facing in the courts and such. I think it's legal in Washington State and Oregon State at the moment. And I think Montana is entertaining it. But, hey, we live in a real world. And we've got to face some very real problems. And it's up to you and I as citizens of our country to pave the way for what is tomorrow. Okay, folks, have you noticed all of these young folks, young ladies and men with tattoos these days? Oh my goodness. I've seen more tattoos than I ever dreamed I'd see in this lifetime, that's for sure. I don't have any tattoos. I'm a chicken. I don't like the idea of somebody putting needles in me. Anyway, I've been thinking about this, and I thought, oh my gosh, all of these girls with all of these tattoos. And I'm thinking, 40 years down the line, we're going to have millions of old ladies running around with tattoos and pierced navels. Oh, now that's scary. So, anyway, kids, think about it. You could be a very interesting specimen of the human race in about 40 years. Mm-hmm. And don't ask me how I know, but at my age, my New Year's wish for this year was to get a training bra, because my treasure chest has become sunken treasures. And you can imagine, if you were a 36, 18, 32 young lady, where your 36 is going to be. It'll be down way by your 32 by the time you're 40. Anyway, folks, guess what? I have a wonderful guest, and we're going to try something tonight that we have not tried on the show before. We are doing a phone conversation my guest is on the phone, and I think that our Spider-Man has got it all fixed up so that you'll be able to hear both of us real well. Now, let me tell you a little bit about her. She is in my generation. That's the good generation. Her name is Lucille Campilongo. She is from the northern section of California, and she is an authoress. And I'm going to call her Lucia. Lucia probably is the best way. And so I'm going to say, Lucia, are you on the line?
Yes, I am, Ace.
Oh, good. You can hear then. You be sure and talk loud into the phone just in case.
I sure will. Thank you for inviting me on your program.
Oh, listen, I'm just so tickled about what you have done. Folks, here is a lady who wrote something for her kids. Now, I can really relate to that because my autobiography was written for my kids, too. Mine, I didn't intend on it ever being published, and I don't think that you did intend for this to be published either, did you, Lucia?
Oh, goodness, no. I had no idea that my daughter was going to try and publish this. Originally, it was just a notebook that I wrote for her when she decided to go and study in Italy for a year. And she was, as she herself claims, domestically challenged at the time. She was 19 and wasn't very interested in domestic things or cooking.
That's enough to scare a mother.
Pardon me?
That's enough to scare a mother with their girl going off.
It certainly did. In fact, I sort of panicked, and I decided to write down all kinds of instructions on doing laundry, on tips on cleaning, washing, ironing, cooking, and I wrote several recipes for her in the notebook. But I think I wrote this to pacify my own anxiety at the time.
Yeah, I can agree. I can go along with that, too, because I wrote my autobiography when I was turning 50 because I thought, oh, my gosh, I'm going to be half a century old. I could drop dead at any time, and the kids wouldn't know, you know? So that's why I did mine.
True. That's true.
Yeah.
Anyway, I wrote this notebook for her and called it Lucia's Survival Book, and I gave it to her on the night that we had a going away party for her. And she kept this notebook all these years, even after she was married, and I had no idea she still had it and that she was still using it. And last Mother's Day, they presented me with this gift, this box containing all this literature from the publishing company, and saying that the book was published and it was going to come out in a couple of months. Prior to that, she and my son-in-law kept saying, "Oh, we're publishing that notebook," and I didn't believe them. I kept saying, "Oh, sure, no way." And anyway, the reason she typed it over and got this idea to have it published was that her own daughter was starting college, and she figured, my goodness, this kid is going to be living away from home, and she doesn't know too much about cooking or keeping house or anything like that, so she decided to type it up and give it to her when she left for college. And she didn't want to give her the original copy because it was all stained with oil stains and
yeah.
all up. And while she was typing it, this is when she had this epiphany about, my goodness, this might be a good thing to try and publish and for young people going away to school, or even adults who needed some help in these lines.
Well, you know, when I was reading it, I thought, boy, I wish I'd have had something like this when I left home, because I was 17 when I left home, and I was spoiled. You know, like a lot of sons are. We don't learn how to do things, you know, and the helpful hints that you have put in there with regard to ironing and washing your clothes and such. And I can remember when I took my first clothing to the dry cleaners and I didn't tell them there were spots, you know. Well, I should have read your book, you see. because that is so important. And I can just see where this book can help so many young people who are away from home on their first time. So young people out there, hey, kids in the universities, you've just left mommy and daddy and you're out on your own. This is a book that you should get a hold of. You know, it's titled Lucia's Survival Guide and Cookbook. And we're going to put on our website the www.luciasbook.com, and you can go to the our staff links page, and our webmaster will have added that link there. Look it up. Get a copy of the book for yourself. It's not a large book. I don't know, what is it? It's only how many pages, Lucia?
It's about 85 pages.
Yeah. And it is just really worth having. It's you'll thank me for sending this on to you. Believe you me. And folks, grandmas and grandpas, and some of you older folks out there that are just getting your kids now into that situation where they're going to leave home for the first time. And you're all worried, like my mother was. She stood on the veranda crying when her oldest boy left home. And you should get this book for your kids and give it to them as a copy that they can take with when they go to college or wherever they're going in the big, wide, wonderful world. Now, one thing, Lucia...
Excuse me. By the way, Ace, before I forget here, a lot of people have said this is also a good book for men who are divorced or widowed or whatever.
Yeah, I can see that for sure, because most men don't know shit from Shinola after they're divorced.
That's right.
Excuse my expression, but it's an old farmer expression. That's
no, well, I think it's helpful to a lot of people, besides the young people going away, both men and women.
Well, can you imagine me, a young man, trying to iron a shirt for the first time? I have no idea where to start, and I sure messed it up. But this book... One woman that read the book said to me, I never knew that you're supposed to iron the sleeves first, and I was always having problems ironing a blouse or a shirt, and when I read your book, I found it much easier to iron by doing it your way. Oh, yeah.
That made me feel good. That was a good hint.
Yeah, no, your hints were right on with that. It just absolutely right on. Another thing in the book that I love, now, when I first left home, I'm a little Swedish boy from the Midwest. I went out to Los Angeles, California, and I became involved with, when I got my, trust fund or whatever you want to call it, when the money became available, I was able to get involved with an Italian restaurant. And I became involved with the Italian culture, and which was just all new and wonderful. And I learned to love the Italian culture very much. And in your book, you have got some wonderful recipes in there for any single person, to latch on to, and that way if they got a friend coming over, they can have a great meal.
Well, I tried to keep it simple because knowing, of course, that my daughter didn't know how to cook, and as you probably noticed, I don't even have any measurements like, 2 cups of this or a teaspoon of that, and I kept it simple, and where I hoped that she would use her imagination as to how much, because I'm not one to measure much myself.
Yeah, I'm that way too. If they ask me to measure, I just don't. I'll try to use my head when I'm doing cooking, and I'm not a very good cook at all. But I'm going to try. One thing I'm going to try that is in there is your marinara sauce, because I have screwed that up more times than I ever want to admit.
Really?
Yes.
Oh. Well, I hope it's helpful to you. I really do.
Yes.
I think you'll find it pretty easy to follow. It's, they're just not that difficult a recipe to follow.
No, they're very good. You did a good job for the kid, yes. And for us who are going to be reading it now. Yes, yes. Yes. Now,
Well, I think it's helped Gina through the years, that's for sure. She's gotten the hang of it after all these years, and like I say, she's been using it constantly.
yeah, yes, I can imagine. Yeah.
And I'm glad I wrote it for that reason, too, that it's something that she wanted to pass on to her daughter. It made me feel good when she mentioned that she wanted to type it up and for her own daughter.
Yeah.
So,
and of course, the kids will get married, and, like Gina, she got married, and she probably got a fussy husband. Well, you're lucky that you did what you did for her, and so is your son-in-law.
well, I hope so. I think he likes my cooking. Sure. But anyway, it's been fun. The whole thing has really been a hoot. As I said earlier, I certainly didn't expect anything like this to happen, that it would even be published. And when they told me that it was published, I just about fell through the floor. And I'm thrilled that it has been published, and I've been having a lot of fun with the whole experience, not having had this type of experience before.
And you never know what's going to, go forward from this. My gosh, I could see something like this, especially being an Italian mama, a cook. Oh, you could become a television personality or something.
Oh, I doubt that. I kind of doubt that.
Well, you never know. It's one step after the other, and you never know where things are going to lead. And if you think that you're too old, I'm going to slap you with my purse, because we're not too old.
Oh,
we can.
No, I'm not a chef, though, either. I haven't had any formal training. Whatever knowledge I have of cooking is from my own mother. And actually, when I was a teenager and late teens even, my mother never really let me cook. She was one of these people that liked to do everything herself.
Yeah, stay out of the kitchen when Mama's doing, yes. Mm-hmm.
Right. And when I got married, I really didn't know how to cook, but it's amazing when you've been exposed to it. I guess I absorbed more than I thought watching my mother sometimes. It came back to me. And not that I was in her league, of course, but as I started cooking on my own after I was married, things came back into my mind. Well, Mama used to do it this way, or she did it that way, and I started learning to cook that way. Mm-hmm. And my mother never had a recipe written down. It was all in her mind. And so I couldn't say, Mom, give me, your recipe for such and such, because she didn't have anything written down.
Well, I got another idea, too. Lucia, that I've been writing since I sold my first work when I was 8 years old. I love to write. That's just part of me. And I've done columns and all sorts of things, been managing editor of publications and such. And I don't know, what's the day newspaper up there where you are?
The Chronicle and the Independent Journal.
Uh-huh. Well, they would probably do a good thing for themselves if they could have a little column that you would write for them, like Ask Lucia or something,
Oh, uh-huh. Well, that would be nice. Yeah, that would be very nice. Yeah, good idea.
So, you never know how things are going to go. We've got a lot of life left in us, and we might as well live it to the fullest, for sure.
Right, that's for sure. Live each day.
Yep. Well, what do they say? We should take every birthday with a grain of salt, However, it works best if the salt accompanies a margarita. But,
that's for sure.
So.
Well, anyway, it's been great. It's been a lot of fun, and I've really enjoyed every minute of it. And in fact, I said to someone the other day, too bad it didn't happen when I was a little younger. But anyway, I'm glad it happened.
Yes. I tell you, I look at age as being something totally irrelevant, because both science and quote God say that time is an irrelevant factor. Therefore, our age, which is connected with time, is also an irrelevant factor. And maybe that's why you and I have so many young people that we get along with, because we don't see ourselves in light of the normal time, so-called.
No, it's just a number. Age is just a number.
That's
and
it.
And I think if you think young, you stay young in many ways.
Yeah. I'm going to share this with you as well as with all of the listeners. I had to go in for a brain scan, not to find out if I had any brain, but, that would have been interesting too. And so I was in there, and the technician did his thing with taking my scan, or whatever they call it. And I was getting ready to leave, and he says, "Mr. Lundon, can you hold on a second?" And he comes out of his little place there, and I said, "What?" He says, I'd like to talk to you." I said, "Oh, yeah, about what?" He says, "What do you do? What do you do?" He says, "I know that you're not a young man." And I said, "Yeah, you can tell by the wrinkles, huh?" And he goes, "Well, no," he says, "you don't even look your age, but I want you to come in and look at something in here." So he took me into the little room, and he says, "I want you to look at some of the photos, x-rays or whatever they are, of brains." And he said, "Here is the average 20-year-old brain, the average 30-year-old, 40-year-old, 50-year-old, 60-year-old, 70-year-old, 80-year-old brain." And I looked at them, and he says, "Can you see the difference?" I said, "Oh, sure. It's very evident what goes between 20 and 80. And he says, "The reason I called you in, and that I want to talk to you and find out more about you, is let me show you yours." And he says, "Now tell me, where does that fit?" And I said, "Oh my gosh, looks like I've got about a 30-year-old brain. Does that mean I'm rather infantile?" And he goes, "No, it means that you have a young brain. That's why," he says, "I'm wondering how you keep it so young." And I said, "Well, it's probably because I love life and I enjoy life and I continue to be active. I do make crossword puzzles. I love to play, Scrabble and different games, card games and such." And he says, "Well, that might be doing it, because," he says, "your brain does not look like a 70-year-old brain, that's for sure." So we probably have very young brains.
Well, I don't know. I don't know, but I do know that if people enjoy what they're doing, if they have a career that is a passion with them, or a hobby that's a passion, I think this means a lot.
Oh, you better believe it does. You better believe it.
All that.
Life without passion means that you're dead.
That's right.
Yeah.
I think, more people should be passionate about what they do.
Yeah.
And whether it's writing or painting or gardening or whatever, cooking, cooking is an art, not a exact science, and it takes a creative mind.
Yeah.
To be able to cook well.
It sure does.
And that's pertains to so many things in life.
Yeah.
Not just your art, but everything. So
Yeah.
it's a wonderful thing to have that passion about things that you enjoy doing.
Well, I have a passion for your book, and I hope it sells tons to our young people and our old people listeners. I can't believe we've got almost 4,000 listeners now, Lucille.
Really? That's wonderful. I hope they'd all go out and buy a book.
Yes, it amazes me.
Nice.
This internet stuff just amazes me. And I tell you, anyway, they're from around the world, too. That's what's an interesting thing. So the people here, like it's, what is it now, about 7, 8, 39. It's about 10:30 on the East Coast now, the people that are listening on the East Coast. And, all the different time schedules. So you never know when they'll listen to a show, especially if it comes on in the middle of the night there.
Right, that's true.
Yeah. Well, Lucille, or Lucia. Okay. Lucia's Survival Guide and Cookbook. Thank you for being my guest, my first phone guest on Lundon Calling.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it, and it's been nice talking to you. I really enjoyed it.
Bless your heart. Bless your heart, Lucia. You just keep on hanging in there, and like I say, we've got it up on our website now, so folks can find your book too. And
Well, thank you.
I thank you for being guest tonight. So I'll say nighty night. Don't let the bed bugs bite. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Well, folks, what a wonderful lady Gia is. I am so tickled that we had her as our first phone guest. And I hope that it came across okay. We'll find out. I'll listen to the show probably on Saturday morning or whenever it gets posted, because, of course, I can't hear it live. Oh, I had a note from, speaking of cooking and things like that, from a lady, a married lady. And she said, he didn't like the casserole, and he didn't like my cake. He said my biscuits were too hard, not like his mother used to make. I didn't perk the coffee right. He didn't like my stew. I didn't mend his socks the way his mother used to do. I pondered for an answer. I was looking for a clue. Then I turned around and smacked the shit out of him, like his mother used to do. I love it. Oh, folks, I have such a weird sense of humor. I miss Mike Lance tonight, but he'll be on next week. We've been mentioning the last two shows about this big debut show in New York City featuring 300 plus artists at the Raw Gallery on 11th Avenue in New York. It is coming up, circle the date, February 19th through March 21st. You definitely should get over to the Raw Gallery and just trip out on all of the wonderful art that is going to be there. And I've told you that I have one of my artists that I think is going to become a very famous artist in the future. His name is Adrian Avila, and he's going to be there. He's been accepted to be one of the artists there. And if you see Adrian Avila and his work, when you are going through this gallery, you go up to him and say, "Hey, Ace said to stop by and say hi to you." That'll knock his socks off. Now, you may wonder how come I think that I should have the ability to pick an artist of the future. Well, for a number of years, back in the 70s or something or other, I was on the advisory board for Gallery Plus on Melrose Avenue in Los Angeles. And granted, the owners, Warren and Dana, had the biggest control with selecting the artists that would be featured in the gallery. But I was on the advisory council with Adela Rogers St. John, the wonderful, wonderful lady she was as a writer, and with J.P. Davidson III, the oil heir, or whatever you want to call it. And we had the opportunity to help select artists that would be artists of the future. And I'm proud to say that many of those artists that we did select during those years have gone on now to continue their work as excellent artists. And I fully expect Adrian Avila to become a good, well-known artist of the future. So check it out. Raw Gallery, 11th Avenue in New York City, February 19th through the 21st. Yes, check it out. Excuse me. Ted Haggard, the Reverend Ted Haggard, has been in the news again. Oh, goodness, on a number of shows, I guess. And I listened to, I don't know if it was Barbara Walters or one of the interviews, and they asked him, and Larry King probably, and they asked him, do you think you are what, straight or gay? And his answer was, even though he had had a gay dalliance, so to speak, he said he thought he was straight. And this got me to kind of thinking about what if the person was a gay person and they had a straight dalliance, an affair. Would they say then that they were gay or straight? It's something to think about, you know. Nobody has to agree with anything, but I think we should think about these things. I can't help but think about the fact that I was, my background in the field of psychology and such, and I do read a lot of that type of crap still. And I was reading something a while back where they said approximately 70%, and how they figure these things out, I don't know, but 70% of the male population has had a homosexual experience of some nature or other. Well, did that make them gay? Lord knows it certainly didn't, because they say only approximately 8 to 10% of the population is actually gay. But if 70% of the males have had some sort of a dalliance, and they're not gay, they're straight. Very interesting, huh? So, it shows that you really can't choose what you are. You either are or you're not. However, it also shows that as another one of the animals in the kingdom of the Creator's animals fool around. Yes, it's true. It is true. So, Reverend Haggard, I accept the fact that you're a straight man, and I accept the fact that you fooled around. I don't like the idea that you have to feel so guilty about it. Heck, you're just a normal human being. Okay? Okay. Times they are changing. This man says, I took my dad to the mall the other day to buy some new shoes. He's 92. And we decided to grab a bite at the food court. And I noticed he was watching a teenager sitting next to him. And the teenager had spiked hair in all the different colors, green, red, orange, and blue. My 92-year-old dad, kept staring at him. And the teenager would look and find him staring every time. And finally, I guess when the teenager had had enough, he sarcastically asked, "What's the matter, old man? Never done anything wild in your life?" Well, knowing my dad, I quickly swallowed my food so that I would not choke on his response, knowing that he'd have a good one, and in a classic style, he did not bat an eye and responded to the young man. He says, "Yeah, got drunk once and had sex with a peacock, and I was just wondering if you were my son." Oh, Lord help us. Oh, dear. Folks, whether you're straight or gay, and I don't know what TVs you watch, but there is a channel called Free Speech TV, which I do enjoy a lot. It's like, what's that other channel that people support, Anyway, it's a Free Speech TV. Now, if you want to watch a great gay news show, it's called Gay USA on Free Speech TV, and the reporters are Andy Hum and Ann Northrup. These two really wrap up the news for the gay community. So it's worth listening to. And if you're straight, you're going to get a lot of news that you never dreamed about hearing even, because they cover it. They really do. Also, if you want a good blog, and you're from now, Free Speech TV is in New York, Andy Helm and Ann Northrup are in New York. Now, if you're on the West Coast in Los Angeles, and you want to look at a good blog from the West Hollywood area, Sam Borelli in West Hollywood has got a blog called Walking WeHo. Walking, W-E-H-O, capital W-E, capital H-O, that stands for West Hollywood. Walking WeHo. He has a great blog, and it's really worth looking into. And you can do this, and even if you're in New York, look on his blog, Walking WeHo. The same as if you're in Los Angeles, you can get Free Speech TV and hear Andy and Ann. Okay? So that's just a little bit of helpful hints from Asa Wees here. Okay. Now with the film Milk now in release. I think I mentioned to you that Harvey Milk was one of the columnists when I was managing editor of the Coast to Coast Times back in the 70s. And Harvey did some columns for us, matter of fact, in every issue. And if you want to check out Harvey's columns that he wrote for the Coast to Coast Times, especially now since Milk is in release, you can go to the Lambda, Lambda. That's Lam, Mary, B, Boy, D, David, A, Lambda Archives in San Diego. They have all of the past issues of the Coast to Coast Times on file there. And by the way, the Lambda Archives is listed on one of our staff links page, So go there and find out what Harvey wrote back during the time that he was writing as a columnist for us. And right up until the time of his assassination. It'll be interesting to see where his head was and what he was thinking during those days. That's the Lambda Archives in San Diego. Now, for those of you, whether straight or gay, who may wonder if there are religious organizations that help the LGBT, that's lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender community. Well, there, of course, is the Protestant Metropolitan Community Church, the MCC. Wonderful, wonderful church that helps people. And they're all over the world now, one of the fast-growing denominations. And then there's Dignity, which is the Catholic. Integrity in the Episcopal and Lutherans concerned. Okay? So there are places in the religious world that do specifically help the LGBT community. Now, I'm saying to you, oh my goodness, we have a sponsor in Atlanta. And I want you to check on our sponsors page, and you'll see this wonderful little church down there with no walls. And if you're inclined to want to go to a church, this is a good little church to go to. Yes. And speaking of sponsors, if you need somebody to create a website as wonderful as the website for Lundon Calling, well, you go to, let's see, where is that? It's somewhere on our website, and the webmaster anyway. And you email him or get in touch with him and see about having a great website created for yourself, your company, or your organization. He'll do it up brown. And let's see, what else is there? Oh, there is that wonderful soap. Oh, I tell you, Stinky Winky. So that is something you will definitely want to check out. And I thank you in advance for being aware of our sponsors. And if you would like to become one of the sponsors, do get in touch with us. You can email at lundon.calling@gmail.com, and we'll get back to you. It's not going to cost you an arm and a leg. And if you'd like to make a gift or a donation or whatever to help me keep the show going, because it does cost. And I tell you, I'm getting so tired of working the street corners trying to keep things going here. So any little bit that you can send, it would just help tremendously. $5 means one heck of a lot to me. And it'll keep the show going. And all you have to do is go onto that page with that PayPal thing and do it. Or you can send it to me directly. Take me out to lunch or something. I don't know what. Anyway. Oh, I have got to get this in before our show closes. When I was in high school back in South Dakota, one of my classmates was Gilbert Rossing. He was the son of the Lutheran minister at Emmanuel Lutheran Church in Beersford, South Dakota. Well, over the years, we lost track, and now we're back in track. We've kept up with each other. He has been married, had 4 children, 2 daughters, 2 sons, etc. And I just heard from Gilbert the other day, and well, I don't know if I heard from him or heard from somebody. He has got a book out called Dignity, Dogmatism, and Same-Sex Relationships. Now, I was just thrilled to hear this, because Gil is just a beautiful, beautiful mind. Okay. Issues concerning same-sex relationships are now conspicuous news items and topics of conversation and debate. And his book is a timely and positive contribution to the current conversations regarding same-sex marriage. Doug Bowder, who is at Indiana University, had this to say: dignity, dogmatism, and same-sex relationships is a fascinating, in-depth examination of homosexuality from a theological, historical, scientific, and ethical perspective. More than that, it is a powerful witness to the love of a father for his 2 gay sons. It's an amazing exercise in compassionate and considerate understanding. I recommend this book to anyone who struggles with this issue. Doug Bowder is coordinator for the LGBT office at Indiana University, and Gilbert's youngest son worked with Bowder, I guess, in the office, and the kids sang in the Quarryland men's chorus for about 3 or 4 years there at the Indiana University. Hey, thank you, Doug. I love you, guy. Okay. And let me tell you what Craig Nesson at Wartburg Theological Seminary said about the book. Readers will be deeply grateful to Gilbert Rossing for venturing his intellectual quest to understand homosexuality both scientifically and spiritually. This book provides clear categories for comprehending sexual identity and gender connectivity as dimensions of human being. His interpretation of the biblical and theological material dismantles stereotypes and constructs compelling ethical arguments for sexual intimacy. The sharing of personal narrative lends the entire project authenticity and makes the case compelling. So I'm going to have to find out where we can get this book, and we'll put that post on our website also. Congratulations, Gilbert. I love you, guy. Yes, yes, yes. Oh, dear. Well, we're over with the the election now. Thank goodness, I got so tired of all of that stuff. Oy, oy, oy. Did you hear about the young cowboy from Wyoming who went off to college, and halfway through the semester, he had foolishly squandered all his money? Boy, does that sound familiar. So he calls home. Dad, you won't believe what modern education is developing. They actually have a program here in Laramie that'll teach our dog, Old Blue, how to talk. Well, that's amazing, his dad says. How do I get Old Blue in that program? Well, just send him down here with $1,000, the young cowboy says. I'll get him in the course. Well, naturally, the father sends Old Blue and $1,000 down to Laramie to the university. About 2/3 of the way through the semester, the money runs out, and the boy calls home. The father said, so how's Old Blue doing, son? Oh, awesome, Dad. He's talking up a storm. But you just won't believe this. They've had such good results that they started to teach the animals how to read. Read? No kidding. How do we get Old Blue in that program? Well, Dad, just send $2,500. I'll get him in the class. Well, the money promptly arrives. But our hero has a problem. At the end of the year, his father will find out that the dog can neither talk nor read. So the kid shoots the dog. When he arrives home at the end of the year, his father is all excited. Where's Old Blue? I just can't wait to see him reading something and talk. Oh, Dad, I've got some grim news. Yesterday morning, just before we left to drive home, Old Blue was in the living room, kicked back in the recliner, reading the Wall Street Journal like he usually does. Then he turned to me and asked, so is your daddy still messing around with that little redhead who lives in town? And the father says, oh my God, I hope you shot that son of a bitch before he talks to your mother. I sure did, Dad. Oh, that's my boy. Well, guess what? This kid went on to be a successful lawyer. And then he probably went on to become governor of Illinois or something. He sure knew how. Oh, me. Folks, Martin Luther King Jr. said it. Take the first step in faith. You don't have to see the whole staircase, just take the first step. So whatever you're thinking of doing these days of real economic problems and such, you're going to have to take some steps in faith. But take them, and take them in faith. You don't have to see the whole staircase. You don't have to see the end result. You just know that you're going. One foot in front of the other. Just take the first step. And if you think you're going to fail or succeed or whatever, that's a bunch of bullshit too. Failure and success are both imposters. The only thing we have to do is go and do. And so it doesn't work out, or so it works out. Who cares? We are going. We are doing. And that's really what life is all about. And whatever you do, do it with passion. Believe in it. It's like this crazy radio show, or radio or internet show. I've been wanting to do this show for, 25, 30 years. Couldn't get it going. I was either too far to the right, or not far enough to the right, or too far to the left, not far enough to the left, or they didn't want anybody down the middle of the road, or they didn't want an old man who would say naughty words. Couldn't get it going. Finally, one step after another. And over my lifetime, when I first started my first radio show back in the early 40s to now, it has been a step-by-step process. I've learned so much along the way, from the days of radio to when television began, to the internet. My God. So, folks, just get that butt of yours in gear and do. Don't be afraid. Do it with passion. Don't be afraid to create, because that's what life is all about, creation. Hear the old clock on the wall. It is now time to say goodbye. I love you, every last frickin' one of you. You hang in there, and we'll be back next week with lovely Lancelot. Goodbye.